Welcome to Prayer and Bible Band, Lesson 7. I do not own the rights to this music. Today's topic is deliverance from bitterness. The background reading is coming out of 1 Samuel chapter 1, verse 10, Acts chapter 8, verse 23, Romans chapter 3, verse 14, Hebrews chapter 12, verse 15, Colossians chapter 3, verses 13 through 15. The devotional reading is coming out of 1 Samuel chapter 1, verses 2 through 19. The central verse. I will read the King James Version first and then the New Living Translation of Ephesians chapter 4, verse 31. Let all bitterness and wrath and anger and clamor and evil speaking be put away from you and all malice. The New Living Translation. Get rid of all bitterness, rage, anger, harsh words, and slander, as well as all types of evil behavior. The key terms for today's lesson: gall of bitterness, barren, embrace, and root of bitterness. Gall of bitterness, a term used metaphorically to represent something intensely bitter, often associated with suffering, misfortune, or even a kind of poison. It's frequently referenced in connection with the suffering of Jesus during his crucifixion. Barren, not reproducing, such as incapable of producing offspring, not producing results or gain. Embrace, to clasp in the arms, to take up readily or gladly. Root of bitterness, a source of negativity and harmful influence that can lead to defilement and hinder spiritual growth. The introduction says, many people have gotten hurt or been wounded, misunderstood, and mistreated through no fault of their own, and these actions have left them very bitter towards others. A wounded person can become a dangerous person because they tend to strike out and wound others because of their hurt and bitterness. They have allowed a root of bitterness to take hold in their heart. The root of bitterness becomes a very destructive force in their lives toward other people. This bitterness is like a spiritual cancer eating away at their lives, and when left unattended, it can destroy their lives as well as the lives of others around them. It's like a poison that is allowed to be loose in a person's circle of friends. In Acts chapter 8, verse 23, Peter talked to Simon about what was in his heart when he offered them money for the power of God, and let him know that he was in the gall of bitterness and in the bond of iniquity. Simon became distraught and asked Peter to pray for him, that none of the things he had spoken would be upon him. He did not want to be full of bitter jealousy and held captive by sin. The believer must bring some things in his life under control to prevent them from spreading and wreaking havoc in his life or in the lives of those around him. Bitterness can be sneaky and subtle, sneaking its way into a person's spirit and hiding. It can be like a hidden force that can undermine a person's joy and their relationship with God and with others. Bitterness is like a silent invader that causes disruption within a person's heart. It hides because that enemy does not want to be recognized and cast out through forgiveness and faith. But believers must acknowledge that it is there and embrace freedom through forgiveness, which will transform that bitterness, frustration, and resentment into peace. Sometimes it's very difficult for one to relinquish control of their emotions and allow themselves to embrace forgiveness, giving and receiving, or surrender so that they can receive deliverance. But it is something that must be done. Part of the tragedy concerning bitterness is the fact that it spreads like a germ in a daycare center. If one child has a cold, then 9 times out of 10, if there is any interaction among the children, all of them will have a cold. For bitterness has a root that spreads to others, and they become infected with whatever one believer has. The story of Hannah tells the story of a woman who had both negative and positive things going on in her life. She lived during a time when it was permissible for a man to have more than one wife. She had a husband who loved her and provided very well for her. Her husband enjoyed spending time with her because he allowed her to travel with him to the temple, but she was barren. and this was a disgrace to a Jewish woman. The other wife had children, and this tormented her. She was a woman of prayer, so she went to God in prayer about her circumstances, asking Him for a son. It was a very heavy burden that she carried, but she carried it to the right source. I don't know if she knew that it was God who had shut up her womb, but it was God who opened her womb. She was bitter in the soul, for her mind, her thoughts, her passions, and her complete soul were sad, hurt, disappointed, angry, frustrated, and burdened because her womb was shut up. But after thanking God for the mercy and grace that He extended to her, God not only gave her a son, but other children as well. God does exceeding above all that we can ask or think. And that's Ephesians chapter 3, verse 20. God has made provision for every believer to be delivered, and He has made provision for all men to be victorious. But sometimes the believer must do something. Just like Hannah did, she made up her mind that she was going to seek God until He let her know that He had heard her cry and that He was answering her. She sought God through praying so much that she was drunk in the spirit, and the priest thought that she was drunk with wine. She had gotten a hold of God and was determined not to let go until she received her deliverance. Sometimes believers must be just that determined when they realize that bitterness is about to destroy them if God doesn't do something for them. Believers must deal with their emotions. When they experience contrary feelings coming up in their spirits, they must stop and deal with these feelings. Jesus asked the man, "Will they be made whole?" And that's John chapter 5, verse 6. You must want deliverance for yourself and do what you are supposed to do. Then let God do the rest. My mother used to say, if you want to be a sweet old man or woman, you must be a sweet young man or woman. So if a person is in bitterness of soul, he must deal with his soul. A believer must let go of the need to be right, assess their situation, and be honest about what is really going on inside of themselves. They must speak the truth about themselves, watching for every opportunity to be delivered and set free, even in their souls. Do not give in to the devil and do not allow freedom to dissipate right before your eyes. Let go of pride and humble yourself, and God will do the rest. The questions for today's lesson. Number 1, why is bitterness so destructive? Number 2, what causes bitterness? Number 3, what can be done to get rid of bitterness? The essential thought. Many times, deliverance is only a prayer away. The end. God bless you, and thank you for joining me today.